You gotta maintain good suspension of disbelief, or else it just sucks the air right out of all the tension.
Oh, fuck you.
It's the closest I had, buddy.
It'll do. It'll do.
That'll do, pig.
This movie's not worth that much effort.
It's fine.
It's not the worst thing I've seen, but I was getting pretty bored, like towards the second half for me.
I was pretty bored throughout most of it. All right, so Oxygen.
It's a French movie.
It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. The weird thing is that, like, I think about it, and on paper, it should have worked better than it did.
It's got a good concept. The conceit is there. This is for those who don't know what this movie is basically about a woman who wakes up in this weird, like, high-tech cryogenic coffin, basically.
Yeah. And she doesn't have any memory of who she is.
And the entire movie is basically her figuring her way, and she only knows she has like 30-something% oxygen left over. So basically the entire movie is about her finding out exactly why she's there and how she can survive, basically. And that's the movie for an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, I actually tend to like bottle movies. I think that if they're done right, I think they'd be very, very interesting. I think they definitely present an interesting challenge.
Sure.
From like a visual writing standpoint.
Yeah.
That being said, if you don't have the talent to really pull it off, you could also be in for just a launch log. And I'm not saying that people here aren't talented, because there is... Because, like, the director here, we know from like good and bad stuff.
He's had a roller coaster of quality.
And like I said, the concept is there. Clearly the design is there. The acting's there.
Yeah, that's what bugs me about it.
Like all the pieces are there, but they just don't come together.
Yeah, individual, it feels like all the pieces are good. It feels like the acting is good. It feels like the writing is decent enough as far as like moment to moment. There are a number of like frustrating beats in the movie where, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, something's counting down and you know that there's an urgency to it, but you just have pieces of it where people are like the characters. Well, in this situation, the character just feels like they're wasting time that they need to be focusing with. And I understand she's supposed to be panicked and shit,
but it's like it doesn't feel like she's responding appropriately to the sense of urgency that's supposed to be there.
Yeah,
it's like
she does a great job with the acting.
Oh yeah, like,
never mind.
This is not her fault at all.
Yeah, no.
This is all like issue with like the writing and the pacing.
Yeah, the script had some issues,
and mostly just like the how scenes like you have like 10% oxygen remaining, and she's like, well, I'm gonna go in this long internal monologue about things that happened in my life. It's like, there seems to be a time and a place to have these things, and it's not when you just find out you're gonna die in like 2 minutes.
Let's spend 2% of my oxygen to try to call my mom or something. Like,
yeah,
just weird shit where it's like
I get why it's there in isolation.
I get why it's supposed to try to build like an emotional beat to the movie,
but in the time they choose to do it, it's like there's so many other things you could use in your time for.
Yeah,
and it adds to that frustration.
It's this moment where it's like, come on, do it. There's so many wasted minutes in this movie, and while those moments are supposed to be like, you know, character building or building empathy or something, it's impossible for me to focus on sympathizing with that character when it's very clearly like, you need to do this next thing. And it does that thing in these movies where, you know, there's a countdown, and when they have a lot of time left, they're like, oh, you know, okay, so I'll spend some time doing this or this, but you know how it goes.
Yeah.
They're gonna waste some time, and then it's gonna come down to like the last, like, however many minutes or seconds that they have left, and it's gonna be tension building and everything, but it's all destroyed by all of these wasted moments throughout the movie, and you're just like, well, you coulda, like, it gets to, you know, that time crunch near the end of the movie, and it's supposed to be tense, and we're both just sitting here like, I can think of like 5 different points in the movie where you could have saved a couple minutes, and this would have been not nearly as much of an issue.
You know what it's kind of like? It's like if you have those, like, the classic scenes where it's like the timer's going off on the bomb, you gotta cut one of the wires to get there, and they looked at it, it's like, there's 10 seconds on the clock, and then they stopped and turned towards like the person next to me and goes, have I told you about my daddy issues?
No, it's like, send a message to my father, and the timer's just counting down, and the person's like, I'm gonna die too if you don't do this. And he's like,
fucking wire.
but I need you to tell him, and it's like, this doesn't make sense, do the wire. Like, it feels weirdly like that.
And it's just, it kind of takes all the tension out of the moment that it's supposed to be giving. To have this more dramatic moment. I have nothing against a dramatic moment in and of itself. It's just poorly placed in the structure of the film.
Sorry.
Like, if you just rearrange that same phone call with the mom, like at 20% oxygen, somewhere she had plenty of time to work shit out. And she thought there was no other solution. She thought was gonna die. That would have been a perfect place to put that. Now he's like, you have 10% oxygen left, and you were just given instructions on how to best save your own life 5 seconds ago.
And you're like, all right, time to fuck around. Like, no. And it's interesting though, because like, you know, clearly this is a futuristic kind of sci-fi style. Cryogenic tank, the whole notion of cryo sleep and all that, like, for whatever reason, she's been frozen and she doesn't remember, you know, who she is when she first wakes up, and her memories start coming back bit by bit. And there's like this futuristic Siri style command system with the like pod's AI, and she has to learn to negotiate its protocols and stuff. And some of the movie is, the tension is literally just it's like an analog of the frustration you feel trying to get Siri to do what you want her to do sometimes. And it's just very strange. It's like, all right, well, this is not entertaining. But it's weird because you and I had kind of opposite feelings about it. Because I started off pretty bored. And I was like having trouble connecting with the things that were happening, and then as the movie progressed and as you find out more about what's going on and you get a bigger idea of the bigger picture, I was at least not completely disengaged. I started to enjoy it a bit. I was like, oh, well, this is at least an interesting concept. You, on the other hand...
See, I was more like, okay, I was kind of getting behind the general mystery of it. Like, I was trying to figure out, like, okay, I'm trying to put the pieces together, like, what's happening, where's this going, kind of thing. And then they eventually realized what actually is happening. For me, like, oh, that was the only thing keeping me interested. So that was not knowing. It was like not knowing, and then the answer kind of like just, it turns out this kind of like ultra sci-fi kind of bullshit. A lot of it just kind of came out of nowhere. So it's kind of like, okay, well, that kind of ruins any interest I had in that, because none of it was built on pieces that were already established.
See, that's the funny thing. For me, that was the moment where I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's not just some bullshit. Like, that's very interesting. Literally opposite reactions to this movie, which is funny because our overall impression of the movie seems to be similar.
Yeah, because I went from that to really bored, and then they kept trying to build attention, and then it got to the point where it's getting frustrating. It's like, just do something about the tension you just heard. Do anything, literally anything that's helpful for you right now, instead of doing what you're doing, which is like the least helpful responses you can do.
Yeah, it's
a hodgepodge.
Like, you know, if you have some time, like, it takes itself completely seriously. There's not a lot of fun in this movie.
No.
But it is an interesting, unique little thing that manages to also feel very derivative.
Don't watch this if you don't like needles, by the way.
Yeah, also, needle warning. It's got some needle stuff. But, you know, like, I mean, I would say give it a shot. It's not bad, but there are better movies out there to watch right now, and like
better bottle movies too. Like, I mean, like I have never seen Buried, but I'm assuming it has a better reputation than this one probably does.
I don't know about that.
Does it? I don't know.
I don't know, but yeah, I would give this a solid like. For the first half, I was like a 4 out of 10, but then by the time it finished, I was like, maybe like a 5 or a 6.
I would probably give it a solid 5 if I had to put a number on it.
Yeah. So
like nothing great or like mind blowing. I would have loved to see the same concept done in a better written script, in a better paced movie.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Because again, like the idea isn't bad. Like, there's no individual piece of this movie that is bad.
That's what's frustrating about
it. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Because they're like, oh, there's a good movie hidden in here. And you can make this, like, this claustrophobic, tense, like, space madness kind of idea. You can make that really interesting. And it should have been interesting.
Yeah.
And there's no good reason why it's not interesting. Cut out the padding. You don't need all the other extra bullshit.
Yeah.
That's supposed to create like dramatic tension. You don't need all the emotional bits. Keep a few just for the sake of like having some reason to give a shit.
Yeah, there are too many points in this movie where you're just watching her freak out and you're like, I get it. Like,
Because there are some interesting camera works, there's some clever camera angles and shit like that.
Yeah.
There's interesting cinematography, the lighting's really interesting.
Interesting tech within the pod that pops up here and there to mix things up.
Like, again, everything here says, like, oh, this should be good. And
if it had just had a bit of trimming, like, this movie is 20% of polish away from being like an 8 out of 10.
If they just
it's so sad.
If they did one more draft, like this probably would have been a great fucking movie.
Yeah.
And I'm getting weirdly frustrated about this one the more I talk about it.
No, it is. It is frustrating because it could have been great.
I'm getting more and like, oh, there's so much wasted potential.
No, like it's that whole that whole idea of the madness that pops in when you've been isolated that much. And it could have done some cooler things with it, but it still did more than Ad Astra did. So that and that's the last time I can come up with like a proper isolation madness. Maybe that one scene in Ozark where Jason Bateman gets imprisoned for a while, but like just there's things you can do with that. I don't know. They could have done this movie in real time. I feel like they intended to, but they didn't.
Which is weird.
It's very strange. It could have worked really well as a real-time thriller, but it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird choice.
Yeah, so, let's go into spoiler territory.
Yeah, let's go into spoiler territory. So,
okay, so the twists were interesting because I called one and you called the other.
Yeah. Because we're at the debate said, oh, she's in space, and like 20 minutes like, oh, she's a clone.
Yeah.
And then we were both right.
We're both like, oh, well, we both had those theories, but like it's not like they conflicted with each other. I was wondering towards the beginning of the movie, like, why don't they just pump in more oxygen from outside?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Why does she have limited oxygen? Either she is underground.
I was thinking underground was my thought, yeah.
Or like she is in space or underwater, like some kind of place, and the reveals that they have, like the twists that they have, they're decent twists, but they don't feel like they're as dramatic of reveals as they should be.
No, and some of them just straight up don't make any fucking sense. Like there's this whole thing where she's trying to call the police department, and the police captain there's like trying to say like, oh, we got the codes, we're gonna be on their way soon, and so on and so forth. And it's at the same time, it turns out to be revealed by her real self back on Earth that, oh no, they're just fucking with you because they're afraid you're going to talk to the media. It's like, but wait, that doesn't make any sense. Like, first off, is she just going to know a press number off the top of her head when they can clearly just change the numbers on the database?
No, it's the idea that if she talked to the wrong police officer, then that could leak out. It's the wrong person who was not authorized to know that information. They could find out, which is why, like, when she initially called, and then that person called the main company that made the cryo chambers, that was her company.
Yeah.
So they got in contact with the right people, which is why she got called back by the person who said they were the police chief.
Yeah.
And that's when they were trying to run her out of time.
But for me, it's also going to be like, why instead of just saying, like, okay, we're just going to keep her talking to the oxygen runs out, they just don't go like, okay, here's how to do the hypersleep shit.
Yeah. Put her back to sleep.
Like, cause that doesn't seem like the most obvious solution, as opposed to, well, we're gonna just knock off our creator's clone body.
It's immediately, but although it does fit in with like the corporate cover-up mindset, like
it's still dumb, and it didn't need to be there.
It is dumb.
To me, that's like a distracting, needless antagonist element.
Also, if you were on Earth and your clone that you launched into space called you 12 years later, wouldn't your first response be like, wait, what's going on? Rather than, don't call me. Like,
I know, right?
Like, hang up on her, like, what?
Because I'd be pissed. It's like, hold on, guys. Yeah. Like, that's my fucking clone up there.
Right.
That you're just leaving to die, and you weren't going to tell me this.
Yeah.
I'd be fucking pissed. And apparently they have the authority to arrest her for some reason.
Well, because it's the whole idea that the virus is being kept, or the life expectancy of humanity is being kept a secret. Or
what the fuck is clones to tell?
I don't know. But anyway, so I did like the moment that they revealed that she was in space. Because there was that funny moment where they pop open the glass
filter or whatever.
Like they turn off the UV filter and she's able to see out, and there's just like a body just like with a hole through its head that doesn't make sense, just like hanging out right in front of her, upside down, like.
The meteor just fucking sniped that bastard.
Yeah, right. And it's just a moment where I was like, wow, like, okay, sure. But then it does this really cool pan out shot, and this is a cool space vehicle. That's part of what I liked. Like, I like cool space vehicles, and this was one of those things where it's like, yeah, giant solar sail, like the centrifugal force that kept these things active, like with gravity and shit. Like, I really enjoyed the design of this thing. I like the concept and the execution of it. I like the idea that, you know, someone had the idea that if you sent a bunch of people into space that were cryogenically frozen and some disaster happened and, you know, one of them woke up and they were the only person who woke up and they didn't know what was going on, like, how would that play out? As a concept, that's really interesting.
It is.
And I liked the whole idea of being sent out to another planet and stuff, but man, there was some annoying exposition. Like,
and I also kind of chuckled myself that apparently they didn't think to like look out for meteors before they sent their spaceship out because space.
Let's be fair, it's 12 years out.
True.
Probably hard to predict. They're probably a little ways out
but
there.
they're like not even that far. You can still see Earth and it's just passing the moon.
No, that was a different planet.
Oh, was it? Okay, I thought it was still Earth. So
No, that was a totally different planet.
That makes more sense then.
You think 12 years and they're still in orbit? What the fuck is wrong with you?
That's why I said I thought it was like massive failure of engineering.
No, it was
the
like,
case.
because they said it was something like 13 light years away or 14 light years away, and it would take them 32 years or something. So like, say threefold or whatever.
That makes more sense.
They're probably like a couple of light years out at least.
Yeah, because I was gonna say like all that effort, it's like a meteor just went bam, and it's been stuck there for 12 years.
Oh man.
No savior of humanity is afoot. Smash! Oh no!
just orbiting Earth, making that sound that Superman's making at the beginning of Justice League. Just,
every year, it's like, oh, you guys can see it.
but yeah, so
How pissed off would Liz be on Earth every year, just watching her dead clone body just fly around in orbit,
just standing on her porch with a cup of coffee, just
what a waste of fucking money.
idiots. Like, just, yeah. So I mean, like, it's a good concept, but it's just. Man, it could have just used a little bit more trimming down and a little bit more polish. Like,
I'm gonna bet if you just if this went through one more draft, you could have cut all the shit out that didn't need to be there.
I get the idea of being in or being isolated and only having so much time to live is shocking and horrifying, and it would make panic set in and all that stuff. But it just feels like it wastes a lot of time on that panic.
Yeah.
And I would have been less frustrated with the movie if it was like, no, this is a badass smart scientist. She knows to do basic stuff, like check for other pods as soon as, like, and I guess she's getting her memories back, but she's not a dumbass.
She's a fucking scientist. She went to Oxford.
She's got intelligence levels that are way above average. So why doesn't she check some basic ass shit? Which she very much acts like a normal fucking person through the whole goddamn movie, and it's frustrating. It's so yeah.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah, it's just it's decent enough. It just doesn't.
It could have been so much more.
I wasn't rooting for her as much as I could have been if I wasn't sitting there half the time going like, okay, I know it's scary. Just.
I mean, granted, if we didn't just watch Profile yesterday, I probably would have not liked this main character a lot more. But having seen Profile yesterday, I'm kind of like, it could have been worse.
It could have been way worse.
Like, she could have made dumber decisions.
Yeah, ooh, man. That one's definitely on the worst of the year list. This falls too much in the middle to fall on the worst of the year list.
I
think it definitely doesn't go that far.
The only reason that it deserves an impassioned plea, the one we're giving it, is just because it should have been better than it is.
Yeah, I think that's the main crime. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say beyond that. I think we've made our point clear at this stage.
Yeah. Stop before we get out of breath.
You want to watch Army of the Dead?
Yes.
Let's go watch Army of the Dead.
Yes.
Bye, guys.